Insert the usual shilling, like, comment, subscribe, rate. Anyway, this video was initially supposed to be about saving the fallen Primarchs, but it's an analysis now. Mostly because, like in life, there are certain people, certain individuals you just can't save. You can't help and you can't heal, and there's nothing you can do about it. And because of that, we'll look at what we can save, what we can heal, and what changes we might make. Now, some of these ideas, granted, are taken from the Horus Heresy, but I think they work pretty well without trying to modify the whole 40k universe and the pre-Horus Heresy stuff. First of all, and the most important aspect, is to change the result of the Council of Nicaea. Now, this is a very important aspect because if Magnus the Red wins, and he should have, anyway, if he wins, then Psykers are more accepted into the legions. Granted, some like the Death Guard wouldn't do that, and neither will the Hypocrites of Rus, but whatever. If Magnus wins, that means there's a more Psyker presence in the legions. Now, this might seem as a bad thing, and it is the first instinct to go that this is a bad thing. But if the Emperor tells Magnus about the warp and the horrors inside of it, and his plans for humanity, and Magnus can understand not to break his father's work once that fatal moment happens. And here's a very important aspect. If by some miracle 1,000 sons are sent to every legion as envoys, if you will, to help the Primarchs and the masters of the legion in their duties of conquering worlds alongside the legion Psykers, then what we have is the perfect solution to stop the fall of Fulgrim. Now, Fulgrim's fall here happens because he takes up the sword and some double split souls, whatever. What's important is that if there's a Psyker there that can feel what's inside the sword, then things change dramatically. And that's how the influence of Slaanesh wades from the 3rd Legion. Of course, there is the problem of Fabius Bile, but like in the Horus Heresy, much in this case, he would become a renegade. Another important aspect, that if Magnus knows all this and he wins the Council of Nicaea, then we saved another one. At this point, we're doing good. We have 2 Primarchs already saved, Fulgrim and Magnus the Red. This tips the scale in favor of the Loyalists, and we will tip it even more. Listen to this. If this happens, then there is a proper solution for Horus, for his fall at the hands of the dagger. Because now there's a Psyker that knows that there is a way of saving the soul of the War Master before it gets corrupted by the gods of chaos. And yes, we'll take the, of course, Horus Heresy approach, where the Mournival is sent to rescue their father. In wolf-shaped forms and everything. Nice, nice. Now we have the War Master on our side. The heresy is pretty much over. At this point, without a proper leader, there is no way for the heresy to continue. But let's continue looking at the other Primarchs, and those we can still technically save, and those that are just doomed from the start. A very important one is Mortarion. Mortarion is interesting. His hatred for the Emperor comes thanks to, well, denying him his skill, but at the end of the day, Mortarion sees the Emperor just as his adopted father, and that's a bit of a problem. In this case, the Council of Nicaea wouldn't really do much but push Mortarion even further away from the Emperor. And to rectify this, I think the best solution is for the Emperor to come and let Mortarion have his victory. If that is to happen, then Mortarion changes a little bit. There's more reasons to be loyal to the Emperor. Now, in the Horus Heresy, the Emperor is changed and he's more like a father than in the Horus Heresy. But let's presume the Emperor has a little bit of a better instinct when it comes to this. Now, this technically will pretty much give the Emperor the loyalties of Mortarion, who might not agree with the decision of Nicaea, but he saw that his father is a better man than his foster father. Because of that, he's willing to listen to it, even if he won't really accept Psykers. And that's where the point of contingency happened, because we saved Mortarion, but we didn't save the Death Guard. Because just like in the main story, the Legionnaires will follow their Primarch, but not all of them. You see, we have to understand that Typhus was a Psyker, and you might expect that a Psyker in hiding is not a good thing. It never really is a good thing, and because of that, Typhus and Mortarion would be more at each other's throat without Mortarion knowing that his favorite son is a Psyker. And because of that, the Legion is split in two. Now, granted, Mortarion would be a wild card because he would think of the Emperor as his father, gave him the opportunity to get rid of his foster father and his tyranny. But then again, the truth of whatever the Emperor is doing on Terra kinda leaves shockwaves. And in this moment of weakness when Mortarion isn't really sure what to do, that's when Typhus and his acolytes strike. And so we have an inter-chapter war. If this sounds pretty much like Jagatai Khan and his voice cards, it's because it kinda is. And I know it's lazy to keep the same reused story, but I guess it works in this case because the focus is not on the White Scars as a whole, but more on Typhus and Mortarion and their fight. Of course, the two combatants will try to bring the others back into the fold, but they will both fail. And Mortarion would throw his chip in with the Loyalists. But thanks to that little civil war, the Death Guard is weaker than before. Now let's move to another case. And we've been dealing with saving Primarchs. We saved a few Primarchs, but not all are savable. And the one I can't really save or think of a solution to save him properly is Angron. I would have to copy the Robotian Heresy step for step to be able to save Angron. And you might not think this is a bad thing since we kind of already did that with Horus, Fulgrim, and Magnus. But Angron's a different case. We have to change not only the Emperor, but his whole backstory for it. It's not as simple as the Council of Nicaea and having another pawn in the game to thwart chaos. Angron still has to get the Butcher's nails in his head. And even if the Emperor takes him on his ship, gives him a legion with which to fight and destroy Nursia, it's not gonna end well. Because as Angron will try to heal the damage of the nails will go further and further inside his head. Now this doesn't mean that the World Eaters are completely chaos. No, I like my civil wars. I think this would be split. Mostly because now Angron has a reason to be loyal to the Emperor and not see him as the tyrants of Nursia. Funny. He will try his best to be a loyal son. The problem is that the nails are there and constantly battering him in the head. It happens in the Horus Heresy during the Ishvan massacre on Ishvan 3 that as Angron goes and makes sure to get rid of his loyal sons, he's starting to lose it bit by bit. And during the heresy, this is what would happen with Angron. He would lose it bit by bit. Slowly, he would give in to Khorne. But by that point, the World Eaters would be loyalists. And when Angron does the step, when he in his anger becomes a demon Primarch at some point, the sons will have to put down the father, tragic as it may be. But since we're making these scenarios, I think the best scenario would be that Angron remains to be the last man standing while he gets attacked by enemy forces. He gives in and becomes a demon Primarch, but Khorne cares not. And so he hits both friends and enemies alike until Khorne has to put his primogenitor down. Tragic. Next, we have to look at Perturabo. Perturabo is an interesting one because I really wanted to save Perturabo, and there is a way to do it without completely rewriting the whole narrative that he has, his whole story. And the best way to do this would be to just make him more stoic. Make him more, it is what it is. Now, again, he will have the same frustrations and everything, but when that moment happens in Olympia, when he kills his sister and when he burns his home planet, he wouldn't throw his lot with the traitors. He would just go back to his father and report on the duty, whatever the punishment may be. And at that point, the heresy is already in swing, so nobody would really care that much about Olympia. It's going to be a problem for after the heresy. Right now, Perturabo and his Iron Warriors are still loyal. to the hatred of Dorn, but that happens sometimes. Next, I want to look at another Primarch that I really think we can save, and that's Lorgar. You see, the problem with Lorgar is that he was too much of a fanatic, and because of that, he got exploited by Corferon and that bastard Erebus. Because of that, once Monarchia happens, the events play out the same way, and Lorgar falls to chaos. Lorgar pretty much suffers from the exact same problems as Angron does in this story, but I don't see a way in which the first heretic, the first betrayer, gets to not be corrupted without, of course, just copying the Roboutian heresy and changing everything about the Emperor, about Lorgar and his backstory and so on. Moving on now to Konrad Curze, the Psycho. There's no way to save him. Again, it's the same problem as with Angron and Lorgar. We have to change everything to be able to save them, and I don't really want to go that route with them. So Konrad Curze is still a traitor. Now comes the big elephant in the room. What the hell do I do with Alfarius and Omegon? And that's a pretty good question, to which I have a most unorthodox answer to. And that's simply make them loyalists. In the beginning, you see, I could split the brothers apart and have half the Legion be loyal, half of them be traitors, like with Mortarion. But I think the best solution in this case is to have them loyal, dubiously loyal at some points, to the point where we're not really sure that are they with us or not. And then at the end, just spool a classic Uno reverse. They had a contingency for everything. They would have joined the traitors if they won the heresy. And I think that works to have them like that. And I think that's pretty much how they are now. But nevertheless. And in this case, you might be wondering, what kind of heresy is this? Who's gonna lead them? Konrad Curze is a lunatic, and there's only Lorgar out there. Whatever is left in other places is just remnants of the heresy. Split legions in a case where the loyalists outweigh the traitors. And I have an answer for this, and I know I kind of built it up like it's going to be a big confrontation on Terra and so on, but it's not. You see, the long war starts now, because all the traitors, after they're fighting and they regroup and so on, led by Lorgar himself, see that, well, they don't have the numbers to pull up a fight. They don't have the members, they don't have the Primarchs to do it. And so, they go to the Eye of Terror, where they will start a new Black Crusade. Or they'll plan one in this case. Keep in mind, a very important aspect though, that what we are talking about now is that Lorgar is taking his ward bearers, whatever Typhus has, and the small pockets of heresy that came out from the other legions, and taking them into the Eye of Terror. Konrad Curze, on the other hand, doesn't really like what Lorgar plans, and he has a vision for the future. He knows what will happen. Astartes killing Astartes, and he will die thanks to this war. So Konrad Curze does the next best thing out there. Yo ho ho, you are a pirate. Basically, we turn to space piracy for the Night Lords, and given their shock troop speciality, they will be pretty fearsome pirates. But where does this leave the Imperium? Well, the Imperium is now stronger than in 40k. Because of that, they have a wider area to expand into. The Imperium being stronger means that certain Xeno races don't really stand that much of a chance. The Eldars are now hiding everywhere just to escape the human menace, which was supposed to be lowered down or destroyed completely, but it didn't work. The Dark Eldar are still in Komarag and with their raid parties, but now they can't really afford to be that reckless anymore, because the Imperium can strike back, and it can strike back hard. Orcs are still going to be a threat, you're still going to have to push them off, and in time the Tau will appear as a race and try to make an empire before they get squashed, because, let's be honest, there's no way the Tau can survive a fight with an Imperium this strong, and an Imperium that has the Emperor. Of course, demons are not a problem anymore because the Emperor manages to fix his plan, to make it come a reality, and then, of course, with the help of Magnus, They make it possible to travel without going through the warp. In 40k, the Emperor's plan is to make humanity strong enough that they don't need him, that he's no longer needed. And so, in this case, the Emperor just vanishes. But he's never truly gone, because whenever his sons need guidance or an idea or something, there's always that presence there, that golden aura that speaks to them. Of course, it's a good idea to keep him like Vulcan was in the War of the Beast. He appears in the darkest moments of the Imperium, saves the day, and just leaves. Now, my favorite part. The Tyranids are still going to be there, but I think bigger hive fleets are going to come in. Since the Imperium is stronger, is more powerful, the Tyranids are just going to come in by the dozens. Hive fleet after hive fleet, attacking worlds and spreading the Imperium thin. To make matters worse, seeing what's happening here, Lorgar gathers his new army, because they've grown in numbers, of course, and warbands, and starts a Black Crusade. Thanks to the Tyranid invasion, it's easier to be done. While Konrad Curze is still messing around here and there, and he's still not dead somehow, while also becoming king of the pirates. Fortunately, he managed to gather up some nefarious races, Xenos races, in his giant army. But we're going off topic. This is something completely else. The main idea is that some of the fallen Primarchs can be saved because there is something to be saved. There is a way to turn the world around and make them join their father. But others can't, because either by their own hands, like Konrad Curze, or by the influence of others, like Lorgar, there is no way to save them. There's nothing you can do to turn them around, to see the light. Others, like Angron, do it as a final sacrifice, and tragic as it may be, he does it to save his children. And I think this is a good point to leave everything on. I think it's perfect. We can't really save them all. I guess that's a good lesson for life too. You can't save everybody you meet. Nevertheless, I hope you enjoyed this, and I'll see you in the next one.